My presentation will be about the evolution of one of our system integration test process. Before we dive into the details, let's see what is system integration testing. ISTQB defines this as a test level that focuses on the interactions between systems. It's an elegant, simple definition. What are the systems what we are working with? Well, because we are at a software testing conference, we got the software. This is actually what my teams are working on. This is a commissioning software for engineers. And of course, because this is a commissioning software, there should be some hardware on the other end. The hardware mainly are electric motors, EC, DC, EC converters, programmable logical controllers, or human-machine interfaces. And to make everything work together, we need a firmware between these two. This firmware is what makes the components work together, basically. This is what realizes the control and the regulations on the hardware and the software as well. Well, as you can see, these components already represent a very big system. If we just consider all of the hardware types that we can have, or all of the software types we can have, and of course the software is part of a larger software pool with the operating systems and with the virus scanners, for example. To make my example a little bit more understandable and a little bit more convenient, I will just going to focus on two parts here, the software and the firmware. And yeah, I got a little story here. The very first time when I had to update the firmware on our devices, I'm talking about 4 devices only, it was around at the end of my onboarding, 3 months when I started to work at Eversoft. I was very confident that, oh, I can do it, no problem here. I spent my entire day in the laboratory to make them work. And at the end, the whole rack was looking like a Christmas tree on Christmas Eve. Red and yellow lights everywhere. So yeah, it was quite a big problem. I gathered my so I became a little brave to ask one of our expert colleagues to help me out. I went to them and stand in front of him and said, hey man, I need a little bit help because I might have messed up the whole system we are working on. The expert colleague, with the sigh of a experienced colleague, said that, okay, let's go. He brought his computer, went into the laboratory, stand in front of the rack, put his computer there, and after 4 minutes, it was ready. Everything was fine, everything was working. Well, this was a really humbling experience for me. So just to see that how easily can it be done and how much time I have wasted there made me realize that we are in dire need of improvement, or at least I was. Because at the very beginning, during that time when my onboarding was going on, our integration, firmware integration just looked like this. We get a new firmware, they did the integration, and we were done. We were very happy. And we were only able to do this because the predecessor of our currently developed software was already supporting this kind of firmware. So they do all of the verification, all of the validation. We do not have to do too much here. This has changed. Just a couple of, now almost a year ago, we have started to work with our new generation of devices, with new generation of firmwares. Everything was developed parallelly. And we started the work with this process. I think you can already see here what could be the problem here. Quite soon, we realized this won't work, because the firmware we were taking over was faulty, or there was missing something, and we were not able to execute our regression tests on the system. Because of that reason, it was not working. So we had to come up with a solution, and we chose the easiest one. We created a pre-build with the US firmware, and we defined the test suite for that firmware to be verified. And if it was OK, integration has happened. And if it was not OK, the integration was not happened. Simple as that. For the testing, we defined a couple of parameters we want to ensure to be included in the software, in the test suite. One of the parameters was the speed. it had to be fast. We needed feedback as soon as possible, so we defined the time frame for the execution only for 2 hours. We needed efficiency. The test cases had to check exactly that parts that we were interested on. So every functionality that was later used on different stages of our test execution. And at the end, reliability. Test cases was allowed to fail only if they uncovered bugs or errors in the software itself. To be fair, we reached that point. We reached this point. So the 2 hour was kept. Efficiency was kept. And basically, our test cases only failed in, I think, 2 or 3% of time because of some kind of environmental and some kind of test case issues. Every other time, we have seen the exact results for the firmware we were testing. It was all good for some time. But then, one of the product owners of one of the teams came to me that, hey, Márton, listen, I need a firmware that you were just said that they are going to be integrated. What can we do? I mean, we cannot do anything. This is our process. That's it. You do not understand. We are not progressing with our development because we need some interfaces on that firmware, which is only available with the newest one. Oh, well, this is not a good news. We have to adapt this process. So, to avoid this situation, we kept the core of the process as it is, as you can see. But we introduced a new branch. Integration now can be requested. The results have been provided already to all of the product owners and chief product owners or whatever stakeholders were interested in the situation, and they had the possibility to come to us and say that, yeah, I need that firmware, integrate it into your main branch. And yeah, if this request hasn't happened, then there was some kind of iteration until we have reached the end of this process. But if the integration was requested, and objection-wise, no other team said that okay, forget that, because if you integrate that new firmware, we are not going to be able to progress, then integration could happen. And unfortunately, if there was objection, that was a problem. Testing-wise, before I talk about the a little bit more, now that the teams started to get more involved in the whole process and they needed more reliable feedback about their functionalities, we had to introduce some limitations because the amount of test cases they wanted to execute no longer suited the 2 hours time frame we defined at the very beginning. So we introduced a risk-based approach here as well. Fortunately, a couple of years ago, all of the teams started to work with, so they were familiar with the process. Unfortunately, the point of view now was not the user, and the point of view was the needs of the developer teams themselves, and yeah, that caused some I don't know problems. Let's say that it took around 2 hours to have this change of mind, all of the relevant parties in the meeting to be able to effectively talk about the possible risks from their team's point of view and at the point of view of the user. But at the end, we have reached that situation and we were good. Well, now let's get back to the escalation. If you took away only one thing from this presentation, then that should be this. Escalations do not have any place in any processes. Try to solve it without that. So, I mean, it caused so much trouble for us. Just to give you an example, if there were we are people, we are different. If there were a product owner who had more influence, who had more charisma, and could talk about their reasons more efficiently why the firmware should be integrated, well, basically they were able to overrule every other product owners. And yeah, this caused quite some issues, I would say. So we were working on to get rid of the escalation part. And additionally, some interesting things happened. One day, I looked up the newly created bugs on our software, and it was huge. It was very huge. We got a lot of new bugs from the runtime side, from the firmware development, and I was dumbfounded. Well, what happened, guys? Why are you creating this so much bugs now? It took a little bit of time to realize that situation. What was the situation? What was the core reason for that? Our software has reached a maturity grade when became more convenient for the firmware testers to check their functionalities with the help of our software instead of with their implementations what they were using before. Of course, the software was created for humans, so the interfaces and everything, the usability was more convenient for them than the, I don't know exactly what kind of tools they were using, but it was harder. So just because they wanted to save some time and wanted to be more efficient, they started to use our software. And because of that reason, we have received more and more bugs. And this was not good. We had to do something. So we have introduced a new approach here. Now, instead of the pre-build with the new firmware, we have defined a pre-firmware as well. Basically, the runtime, the firmware development, has given us a pre-release version too. So we have created a pre-build with this pre-released firmware and do the testing. If the results were not OK, we requested bug fixing and created a new software and firmware combination. This could only work if the bug fixing has very high priority. What I mean by that, you have found something, you have to ensure that this is solved as soon as possible to be able to progress with your testing, with your development. So these bugs has received the highest priority, and every development team who have received these bugs had only 24 hours to fix this. So the process could go on. If it was OK, then all right, we have created a new firmware. But in the meantime, our software development has progressed. So before we integrated into the main branch, we did again an integration to a new software version from our main branch, basically, and do the testing again. And there were, again, results. If they were not OK, everything went back to the bug fixing. If they were OK, we have provided the same software as usual to anyone. From testing point of view, because we were now handling the firmware and the software parallelly, we needed some new feedback, some new information from the firmware side as well. So now we introduce the firmware requirements into our tests. Now we have to do the rules-based approach with the help of that again, and we had to keep our 3 predefined parameters as much as possible. At the beginning, it was very hard, because the needs has grown so much, and the coordination to make everyone, I would say, not happy, but make everyone to accept the situation took, I don't know, at least 2.5 months. But eventually, we had a test suite, which were capable to do what we have described at the very beginning. Yeah. And currently, this is how our process is looking like. This is how we are doing the system integration for our software, and this is how we are doing the system integration for our firmware as well. And at the end, we had a retro not so long ago about this, a retrospective meeting. And we gathered all of the points that we thought that has been solved, and we thought that need some improvement there. And four elements was highlighted as a good point. One of them was basically the increased speed we have achieved. Because of the bug fixing has received the highest priority for this process, everything became more smoother, more reliable, and eventually, if we compare our situation to the process 2.0 or 3.0, we are more quicker, we are more efficient at this point in time. That could be because the teams have understood and get used to the situation, how we are handling the system integration. But at the end, I think it has also a reason because of the process has changed to a more user-friendly. And by user, I mean software developer and tester friendly at the end. We got the possibility for early feedback for both of our products included in this integration process. What I mean by that, now we are giving early feedback to the runtime, and they are giving early feedback to us if something has to be changed. With the help of this, we have achieved a little bit of shift left, because we can detect the defect early, and we are able to, so we are not hinder our development progress with newly introduced problems in our systems. We gained stability. Yeah. from two points of view. One of them, of course, from the product point of view, because there was always a stable runtime and firmware version together to be used for testing. This meant that the teams can progress. And because we removed the escalation part from the process 3.0. So without the escalation, it was more, I do not have a better word for that. It became more friendly to everyone to be able to work on the project because they did not have to argue about any newly implemented interfaces, any newly introduced bugs, or why we should take over a new firmware. This human parameter has been removed. So it became also more stable from the project point of view without more arguments. And at the end, we gained scalability. It might not show on the process 4.0 exactly how it can be imagined, but it can be scaled in three ways. You can scale it to introduce new products or new systems into the testing itself. You just need to create a new loop in the middle. You can scale it in that direction that you want to test more. You just have to extend it to the right-hand side, or to the right-hand side for you. And at the end, if you have more product, more system combinations you want to test in the same way, you can repeat this process again and again and again for that combinations. And to be fair, what I have just described here is just one part of the whole that we are doing. We got several firmware versions, we got several software versions, we got updates, we got service packs, and these all have to be tested in the same way. And with the help of this process, we only need just 2 guys who are handling this within one team. Because when they receive all of the information, they were able to automate almost everything here. The integration happens automatically, the building happens automatically, the testing happens automatically, the evaluation happens automatically, and if something is found, this is when some manual work has to be done to decide if this was a test error or it was a software or firmware error. But then the bugs are created and the processes go again. So we are very comfortable with this right now. At the moment, there are some thoughts that is given that how should we improve this, how it should be more, how should it be better for our needs. But these are just quite vague ideas at the moment, and I cannot give you the exact descriptions of them. So technically, that would have been all that I wanted to talk about today. I hope you gained something from this talk, and I would like to repeat myself, escalations do not have any places in this kind of processes. They make everything worse. Thank you.
Nice, thank you very much. All you need to do now is just answer a few questions.
All right.
Yay. How much time did it take from you to build up the present state of your processes from the beginning?
1 year. So as soon as we have realized our original process, which was relying on the past, the predecessor software version verification and validation, is not working anymore. It was 1 year until we reached the process for 4.0.
Okay. Could you please share a few examples when the results were not okay, sorry, but you integrated anyway? What were the costs of those decisions?
Well, let me give you an example. Our software and hardware has 2 states. They can be online, either offline, and you can move data between those states with download or an upload. And one of the biggest problems we have integrated anyway was to make this upload and download impossible. So technically, all of our test cases, which were using both products together, was not working anymore. And this took at least 2 weeks until we received the fix. So for 2 weeks, we were flying blindly. No information about the quality of our software, no information about the quality of our firmware. It was a challenging situation.
Okay. Is this a manual process or a CI/CD pipeline?
It's getting closer to a CI/CD pipeline, but I wouldn't call it at the moment because some manual input is required anyway. Basically, the builds are quite hectic at the very beginning with what kind of branches we are getting from which branches we are getting it from, and it needs some human input if something gets messed up. But this is what we are working on, for example, to make it move closer to a CI/CD pipeline at the end.
Okay. There are situations when you don't have other choice but escalation. Or do you have a good tip or trick to avoid it anytime?
Yeah. They are unfortunately unavoidable, I would say. So even with the process 4.0, we have sometimes when we have to sit down together with the leader of the different projects and discuss what causes the problems. And what I can say for that go to those meetings with the mindset that you want to solve the situation and you do not care about that at all, who or what caused it. That would make everything more better for you at the end, and for all participants, let's be honest.
Okay. Which testing tools do you use to test entire workflows in a BPM modeling tools like Camunda or Oracle BPM?
Yeah, I cannot talk about this. we are dealing with internal tools, which has its upsides and downsides, but I cannot share the exact details of that, unfortunately, sorry.
Okay, thanks for nothing.
Anytime.
What is your process of hot fixes or prod fixes? What kind of strategies do you use in terms of complex integrated systems with 30+ devices?
So let's talk about our software first of all and our software development life cycle. We are working in an agile environment, but our releases between the sprints are only for internal users. So the whole release happens only on a yearly basis, so our industrial users receive the software only just at the end. So we do not have exactly prod approaches, and unfortunately the question has disappeared, so I cannot answer the second part.
Oh, it's fine. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Whoever asked this one, please approach him for the second part of the answer.
Yeah.
Thank you. You have the lunch break soon. How to make this process effective in remote working setup?
Oh, well, this is actually a kind of easy answer. There, you need someone who is in the laboratory. Entirely so because of the hardwares we are dealing with, they are quite large and quite powerful. So we need somebody who is able to work with them on place. So it cannot be done entirely. In our case, it cannot be done only in a home office environment. Then somebody needs to be close to the rack at the end of the day.
Okay, 2 more. What was the trigger to start creating proof that the systems are ready to be integrated?
Well, nothing was working. If you remember the process 1.0, when we did the integration blindly, we were flying blindly again. Test cases were not working. Development was not able to progress. So yeah, nothing was working. That is the simplest answer I can give.
Okay, 3 kívánság. You can choose from the first 3 because they all have 4 likes. How do you handle the escalations in your agile methodology? It's difficult to say that word. Is unit verification also included in your... Oh, come on.
One of them.
Okay, were you having challenges with integrating into the overall process landscape?
We had challenges with the technology, but not from the process or the people point of view, because everyone was in a dire need for a solution. So process-wise, it was easy to implement. People-wise, it was easy to implement. But from technology-wise, we have to come up with a solution how to change firmwares easily on the drives without any human interaction, if it was possible.
And now the big applause for Márton. Thank you so very much for this great presentation.
All right.